Thank you all for coming to meeting again today. We're meeting again at the request of UMO. As you recall, we previously had worked with them to develop an online degree program, and now they want our help to get that program accredited. And the accrediting body that they have selected to make application to is iNACOL. And hopefully you all have had an opportunity to review all three sets of standards that iNACOL has set out there, quality teaching, quality courses, and quality online programs. And before we move on, what I'd like to do is just review what iNACOL's mission statement is because I think that is an important part of us keeping focused on making sure that our recommendations meet that mission statement. So that is to ensure all students have access to a world-class education and quality online learning opportunities that prepare them for a lifetime of success. And just to kind of make sure everybody knows everybody here, Brandy, you are our new tech person, so we're going to depend on you a lot since this is an online program. Technology is an integral part of what we're going to need to look at. Kelly, we're still going to need to hear your ideas on equity and equality. John, as always, you're able to share a different view on things, and we need your input. And Kathy is our new standard operating procedures person as our manager. So we're glad to have you here with us. And then, of course, Pato is going to wrap things up for us and kind of summarize things and put it in a final plan to submit to UMO. And I thought a good way for us to start off would just be for Pato to review what our initial recommendations were, and then we can kind of build on that as we work through these different standards and make our recommendations.
Okay. All right, thank you. So the first recommendation that we had was that we believe that providing maybe a blended or a hybrid course could be a good solution to offering on-ground and online students a positive learning experience. An example could be a science course where students will take the lectures online, but then they'll do the lab portion in class. The second recommendation we had was that we agree that D2L is the best platform out there to adopt at this time. It is not too costly, it does provide technical support, and it is user-friendly. And there's a lot of things that faculty can do on there. They can deliver material, they can do discussion boards, submit tests. And for those faculty members who are skeptical about, students taking an online test, D2L or turning in a paper, D2L does have a Turnitin included on there, and they can do lockdown browsers when they do tests. The last recommendation we had last time was that in order to get faculty on board, we agree that faculty should be included in the planning and implementation of the online degree. Maybe a way to do this would be to create a committee composed of faculty members nominated by their different departments. We wanted to feel ownership on this project and not feel like everything comes down from the administration. And then, of course, we would need for faculty to feel that there's enough training and tech support.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so moving forward, in reviewing the three standards that iNACOL has, there is a lot of overlap with some of those standards, and so what I've done is try to compile that into three different categories that I would like for us to kind of follow as we move through this discussion so that we make sure that we have covered all three of those standards in our recommendations. And those three categories would be institutional quality, consumer protection, and then finally we'll talk about financial responsibility. So let's just move right into institutional quality. I think the first thing we want to address would be the institutional standards. What recommendations do we have for UMO to reach those types of standards that iNACOL has? This would be in terms of governance, leadership, planning, those sorts of things.
I think one of the things we brought up was that we need to make sure that there's the implementation in the online program is that we keep within FERPA compliance in regards to student records and student advising.
Okay. So, go ahead.
I think also they should come up with maybe a leadership group to help develop a mission statement for the program.
Okay, I think that's a wonderful recommendation. Are there particular parties or particular offices we would want represented on that leadership group that we could recommend?
We want to make sure that we have someone from IT, someone from disability services, someone from the library potentially. The different offices that a student would utilize on campus needs to have a representation on the committee to talk about putting those programs online.
Okay. So probably someone from admissions, someone from advisement, all of those important.
Financial aid.
Financial aid. Okay. And then, of course, we want faculty represented, I think, on that leadership and planning committee as well. Okay. What about teacher standards in terms of skills, experience, professional development? What types of recommendations should we make to make sure that that UMO is able to accomplish the standards that iNACOL has?
I think you need teachers that are licensed and also have background in technology, maybe experience teaching online classes, or at least some knowledge, basic knowledge of state of technology and education.
The same degrees and educational background that you want your on-ground instructors to have should be the same expectation for your online instructors.
And we definitely want ongoing professional development, ongoing training for these instructors.
Right. That's an important thing, especially as technology is constantly evolving. We need to make sure that they build that into their plan.
I think that is, to second that, I think that would be very important given the apathy we had in just getting online classes off the ground in the first place. It's probably safe to say that we can assume from that a lot of faculty probably need some help on this. They probably aren't the most tech savvy.
Right. So they may actually need to bring a few new folks in, do you think? Would that be one of our recommendations, to have a little bit more experience with online teaching?
I think so.
They could even look at contracting an outside source if they needed to do that training, if they didn't feel like they had enough qualified on-staff personnel. They could bring in a third party to do that training until they're familiar with it themselves.
Okay. From a management standpoint,
and perhaps have also people on campus to help with faculty training and assessment, because I think a lot of faculty tend to be intimidated by what they don't know, and this is going to be pretty new to some of them. So that would really kind of help, smooth out that transition process for them into an online curriculum.
Okay.
So maybe some one-on-one trainings offered then for those faculty who are scared to talk in a group or ask questions they may deem as stupid. Okay. One-on-one trainings would help.
Okay.
I would say having faculty that are sort of the top of their game when it comes to technology, taking some leadership in this would probably help the other faculty get on board too.
That's a good idea.
Okay. And some of the training they're going to need is going to kind of overlap into our next category of curriculum and course design. They're definitely going to need some instruction on that. What sort of recommendations do we need to provide UMO regarding the curriculum and course design and assessment?
We definitely need to make sure that those online courses are the same quality as the in-class courses.
Okay.
I think the D2L platform could be utilized for both the on-ground and the online classes. If faculty wanted to put the syllabi or put the class instructions, or everyone turned their papers in via D2L, it would provide some continuity between the on-ground and the online programming.
Right, and I think that is an important part of the accreditation is that teachers do get very good at providing all that sort of guidance on D2L for the students to have access to. So like you said, things like syllabi and rubrics and those sorts of things that outline what their course expectations are is an important part of that accreditation.
Yeah, we need similar assessments for web classes that we have for the live classes too, but we have to also balance that versus, of course, academic freedom.
And we need to make sure that we have student services plans online as well as in class. So those students with disabilities are getting the same accommodations online as they are in the classroom.
Okay, that's a good point.
We also need to make sure that the classes are, are meeting the same proficiency intensive requirements as the on-site classes.
Okay. Another thing with curriculum and course design that iNACOL will be looking for is the instructor's ability to build into the program collaborative efforts and interaction with students. What recommendations can we make for that?
Utilization of the discussion board, still allowing for group work. There's different platforms they can use to meet as a group, even if it's from a distance.
Okay. All right. What about in terms of support? What types of support services is this online program going to need in order to meet iNACOL standards?
Maybe they could have something like an online orientation, a resource page that has links to the library or links to the writing lab so they can see what resources are available.
Right. That's a really good idea.
We might even consider the development of a computer lab that they could use for some of the training and online resources too.
Okay.
Maybe, if possible, embed librarians and learning support staff into the classes so that they'll be available to the students.
Okay.
From a technical standpoint, you could create a chat now option for the website that would allow parents and students alike to ask questions, get support, seek answers to things that they may not be able to find on a resource or an FAQ page.
Okay. So that would allow us to provide some support to parents and students, the chat now? Okay. What about in terms of support for teachers?
Having a dedicated help desk for the instructors, for the faculty and staff, people that know what issues they could have from a delivery standpoint versus a receiving standpoint on the student side.
Okay.
Maybe this would work for students too, but just some videos that, like short YouTube style videos that show how to deal with common problems and how to do basic things.
Okay. And what about advisement? How can we meet those standards in an online platform?
Maybe we could have those advisors that are advising the on-ground students. Maybe they could advise via Skype or email or maybe Adobe Connect, something like that. So they're getting the same information that the on-ground students are getting.
Kind of develop a protocol for student and instructor online advisement.
Okay. Would record keeping be an important part of that also?
Yes.
In terms of the advisement?
Data collection, like develop a data collection plan, and, you know, and when you're referring to like student learning goals, what they expect from the course, what the course is going to offer, what the objectives are. Everything except in watching on the transmission of grade information.
Okay. All right. So, Pato, could you kind of summarize that section of things for us before we move on to the next?
Yeah, sure. So we talked about definitely starting off with a mission statement, and for that we definitely need to establish a leadership group. We obviously want to include faculty members, an IT member, library staff, maybe somebody from the disability office, from the advisement center, maybe financial aid as well. And then we talked about how we need teachers and professors that have the appropriate background and degree to teach those courses, and then also for them to have some experience with technology before, and then obviously provide training for them. Sometimes maybe even one-on-one for those that don't like training in a group or don't feel comfortable in a big group. We talked about the curriculum and how would that look like. We need to make sure that the on-ground classes and the online classes have the same quality. And so, you know, we want to give a little freedom to the professors, but also, you know, as long as the material is the same, the delivery is not as important. We also need to make sure that our special needs students get the accommodations that they need online. And then talking about advisements, we suggested maybe using Skype or via email to do the advisement sessions, and then also have maybe an online orientation for the students, or a resource page where students can find the information that they need. A chat now button was also talked about, which could be used by both, you know, students and parents if they have any questions. Video tutorials also, and library support. And then,
okay, and I think the last thing we needed to cover there was evaluation standards, internal and external evaluations, and program development and improvement. What type of recommendations do we need to make for them in terms of their internal and external evaluation processes?
I think they could. Go ahead, Kelly.
I think ongoing self-assessments would be a really good idea.
I think utilizing the same evaluation standards they have for on-ground classes that's already established, they could use the same standard and the same evaluation process for those online classes. That would give them a great benchmark of how those online classes are performing compared to their on-ground.
Okay, that would be the SAIs, the student assessment and instruction.
Okay. And then we talked about previously, given the faculty a voice and things, this might be a good place to put in some recommendations for faculty feedback on what type of program development or improvement needs to be made, especially early on in this process. They're going to have a lot of things to work through and changes to make maybe in the first few years, and that might be an important part of meeting those ongoing evaluation standards from the INACO standpoint as well, to know that they're constantly reevaluating, especially early on, the success of what they've got set up. What about consumer protection? In terms of integrity and accountability, legal and copyright adherence, and FERPA laws, those sorts of things, what recommendations do we need to make to UMO for that sort of standard?
I think we need to make sure that faculty are knowledgeable on copyright law and what is acceptable to use and what is not, and how much of a copyright material you can use legally.
And utilizing Turnitin and the Lockdown browser, and maybe even having proctored exams, those would definitely help with academic integrity.
And giving faculty, training in FERPA standards and collection of student data, distribution of student data, the confidentiality of student records and keeping accurate records of those advisors.
Okay. It might be a good idea to also recommend to them establishing unique usernames and passwords for students and faculty accessing the D2L platform as well. Okay, and what about financial responsibility? Financial and material resources, sustainability in fiscal and physical resources. What recommendations do you have as a group for UMO there?
They need to take in consideration not just the startup costs for the technology, but the improvement of that technology and that software. Software almost is outdated the day it comes out, so there's lots of updates that have to take place. So they need to take into account the increased cost over time for those programs and that technology.
And I think it's a good idea to have a committee formed by information technology that could work with an academic committee or administrative committee on letting them know what standards are necessary, how many computers, what these programs are going to cost, what the take, what we would charge fees for the online courses. That needs to be taken into consideration. And information technology will have that information.
Okay.
Make sure that these programs receive adequate funding so that they can maintain technology standards and keep it at an acceptable level.
Mm-hmm. Good point. I think it's another important thing we need to recommend is that they make sure they provide full disclosure to the students regarding these added costs that online courses are going that they're going to incur as a result of taking online courses. And also, it's going to be important to make sure that all the students have access to all of the software that they're going to need to complete each online course, and hopefully not at a great added cost to the student as well. All right. Pato, can you give us a summary of these last little topics that we've covered?
Sure. So for as far as integrity and consumer protection, we said that we would suggest using Turnitin and Lockdown browsers, even proctoring exams. Also to provide a unique username and password for students and faculty for security reasons. As long as, FERPA, make sure that everybody knows what FERPA is and what it entails. And then maybe even train faculty on copyright law so that they know, how many pages can be scanned before, they can upload them. And of course, making sure that special needs students have the same accommodations as the ones on ground. As far as funding goes, we should have adequate funding to be, we should make sure that they maintain, they have enough funding to maintain technology standards, and that they don't just look at the startup cost, but the cost over time, because software can be more expensive the next year, or they have a new version of it. And also, if there is a extra fee charged to students for taking courses online, that those are disclosed upfront to the students. And then finally, to make sure that the appropriate software and hardware is provided for students taking online courses.
Okay. Any final thoughts from the group? No, we're good? All right. Thank you all for your hard work. I think we've got some solid recommendations to send back to UMO, and you all have a great evening.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay.